What's up guys, welcome back to Sweet Science with Streetz. I'm Ian Streetz. Today we've got another common mistakes video, and today it's going to be common mistakes when throwing that rear hand. Rear hand is a punch that people obviously get very obsessed with when they start boxing. It's very satisfying. You get all the power, turning the hips, everything. It's the knockout shot. Everyone wants a good rear hand. But when people start, it's one of the worst thrown punches, all right? So there's a few things we need to remember. Number one, you're gonna see a lot of these mistakes common throughout the punch, okay? One of the biggest ones is telegraphing or winding up. So telegraphing is, if I'm gonna throw my right hand, I wind that shot up before I throw the right hand. That gives the person a lot of time to react, respond, and attack. So don't retract your hand. Economy of motion is very big in boxing. If my hand is here, it wants to go here forward. What it doesn't want to do is make its journey even longer. I know when you start out, it may feel like it's more powerful. Trust me, it's not. And I can guarantee you this. Once you start doing rounds, the later rounds, you're going to realize how much energy you've wasted from doing that and how much weaker it is when you're using your muscle, okay? If you use mechanics, hip rotation, twist, and torque, you can have a lot more power for a lot longer than you are if you just swing. So mistake number one, I cannot stress this enough, do not wind up your rear hand. It's already a big shot. It's already having to go from all the way back here, all the way forward, and all the way back. I don't want to make that even bigger by pulling it back. Don't wind up those rear hands, guys. Number two is overcommitting on the shot. All right, so you'll see this happen all the time. People get so hungry for the power that they end up leaning over there. I'm not going to say that's not effective. A lot of Deontay Wilder's knockouts look exactly like that. But hey, who am I to criticize? He's former world champion. So some people get away with it, but I would say learn the rules before you can break them. As a general rule of thumb, you don't want your head going over wherever your foot is. So what I mean by that is I don't want to be throwing my head forward over where my foot is. That's generally when I'm going to lose my balance. What I'd rather do is imagine there's a pole going through my head to the floor and my shoulders are rotating around that and then coming back. That way I'm using my hips rather than projecting off my back foot, which we're going to cover in a minute, okay? So twist, retract your hand, that's going to be powerful. If I push off, my head comes forward, I'm going to lose my balance. Rather than twisting, retracting, I can start and finish in a powerful position where I'm ready to throw follow-up punches. Number three is actually the opposite of that. So it's when people undercommit to their shot. So we know it's bad to be throwing our head forward. We're going to be losing our balance. But what's equally as bad is not capitalizing on the hip rotation and the power that the rear hand offers us. So people tend to square up and just kind of throw the hand out without any twist, okay? If I'm undercommitting on that shot, I'm just wasting it. I'm giving my opponent plenty of time to counterpunch me for no real benefit. Even if I hit them with this, it's not gonna hurt compared to if I'm getting all my body weight, I'm retracting the shot, I'm gonna get out of the way, I can hit and move. That's gonna be a lot more powerful than if I'm just extending my arm without any real hip rotation, okay? So don't undercommit, don't overcommit, and you'll feel the difference. That's the beauty of boxing. A lot of the time, you'll feel that sweet punch when you get it right. What I would say is spend a lot of time focusing on your hip and your opposite shoulder. What we want is that perfect timing of foot rotates, hip turns, opposite shoulder goes back, punch goes out, and then that happens in reverse. That is when my full body works together, rather than if it's a bit jittery, I turn my foot, I'm extending my hand, then I remember to turn my shoulder. It's all going to be off time. You want your body moving as one, moving as one. That's when the shot has its real snap and its real power, and it does the most damage. Remember, overcommitting, not good. Undercommitting, not good. Spend time on your body rotation. Just put your hands on your stomach at first and get your shoulder touching your jaw without moving your head. So don't move your head from side to side. Get used to this rotation. Then you can put your hands out, and that's how your ones and twos should be looking, especially your two. You'll notice the logo should be read by someone over there when I'm throwing my right hand, okay? So if I'm squaring up and just doing this, logo is visible to the person in front of me. that means I haven't used my hips and my shoulders, okay? Generally speaking, your big toe wants to be pointing at your opponent's belly button, okay? Your belly button doesn't want to be pointed forward. It's different for Muay Thai when you can use your lower limbs, things like that. It changes the way you hook. You don't want to be turning over because your leg can get kicked out. We'll cover this later. But generally speaking, as a general rule of thumb, if I'm completely squared up, I don't have a lead hand, I don't have a rear hand. The second I turn my belly button off, it's called get skinny. You can notice the chance of hitting my body is a lot less when I'm here compared to here. It also allows my rear hand to travel that much more distance. And as I said, I want that to be a good thing, not a bad thing. I want to be able to snap my hip rather than pulling my arm back and making more effort for myself, okay? So find that sweet spot, not overcommitting, not undercommitting, just the right amount, like Goldilocks. Mistake number 4 is not turning your hand over, okay? So this is something that will just give you, it'll turn a good punch into a great punch, and it'll give you some additional benefits that you might not immediately think about. So if I throw the exact same punch, if I extend my hand, you'll see there is a little bit of an opening here for me to be hit. If I change nothing else other than turning my hand, immediately I've covered my shoulder, covered my chin with my shoulder more than I had previously, okay? The other thing it does is it allows me to sit down into the punch, which we're gonna cover in a second. That's where the true power is. Down is your friend in boxing, okay? People lose a lot of energy, we'll discuss this in a second, by pushing up. Sit down, turn your hand over, retract your hand back, and you're gonna have a beautiful right hand. So when you throw it, imagine you've got a cup of water and you're gonna pour like a quarter of it out, not all the way down. We don't want to be punching with vertical fists. There is a time for that. We'll discuss that in another video. Generally speaking, we're speaking in general terms for now, general basics. Tip a quarter of that glass of the water out, bring your hand back, your right hand's gonna improve a lot. Number 5, an extension, I kind of alluded to it in number 4, is not sitting down into your shot, okay? So what people often do when they start is they know that they want to turn their foot. That's a good thing. That allows me to use my hips and my shoulders into the punch. But what they do, instead of imagining that they're putting out a cigarette or squashing a bug, turning on the ball of their foot, what they do is they almost go ballet mode and they push up onto the tiptoes. If I lose the crease of my hip, if I have a straight line here, if I get hit in the body, it's gonna hurt a lot, okay? The beauty of sitting down into a shot is those abs are engaged too. So if you get counter-punched into the body, you're somewhat ready for it. Also, the power is gonna be a lot more than if I'm getting into this bad habit of projecting up. Up is not your friend. It makes you a bigger target. It takes away your power. Sit down into your shots, turn the hands over. Number 6 is a big one, and it is not tucking the chin down. So a lot of what we've discussed, turning the hand over, turning the hips, turning the shoulders, all of that is not only to make our punch better, it's to make our defense better. Because as we've said before, hand should be covered on one side by your other glove, by your shoulder on the punching hand side, and then we return to a defensive position. If I'm going to all that effort, but I'm trying to look to admire my work, biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes I can make. Keep that chin tucked down. When you're throwing that rear hand, make sure you're like a condescending librarian looking over your glasses at someone, okay? You want, but make sure you're looking down rather than up. Don't look up and expose your chin. You're looking down, you're still looking, but you're keeping that chin tucked down and you're keeping those gloves in a position where they can protect your jaw, okay? Number 7, I've covered in the jab. We're gonna be covering it in the other punches because it happens all the time. It's dropping that other hand. People get super focused on throwing the shot that they want to throw that they forget about the other hand and they leave themselves wide open, okay? Cannot stress enough. Most shots, if you really want to throw them efficiently, you shouldn't even really be thinking with your punching hand. It knows what it needs to do. It's your opposite shoulder, okay? So a good cue, I feel, is if you want to throw your rear hand, imagine someone's touching your front shoulder and you don't want to let them. So they try and touch and you want to take your shoulder out the way. What that does is it allows you to twist rather than focusing on your rear hand where you're going to do that wind up that we discussed that we really don't want to do. So instead of thinking with that rear hand, think with the opposite hand. You're going back with it, you're coming back. It's very easy then to get rotation, to get power, rather than winding up the shot, okay? And while I'm doing all that, make sure you don't drop your other hand, okay? This is a killer, leaves you wide open. From here, this hand is going to come back to your face and back, okay? So when someone's touching this shoulder, what I want to do, bring this hand to the bone of my cheek and then return position. Why bone of cheek? Because you tell people you want to keep their hands up and they do this and they leave their body exposed. Or they put it on their chin. Reality is your gloves are going to move slightly when you're throwing with force. So they put it on the chin. When they throw the punch, it drops away from the chin. So we give ourselves a little bit of leeway. Bone of the jaw, bone of the cheek. If I'm thinking about getting my hand to there and I bring it back, it's always in a position where it can protecting my jawline. Not too high, not too low. Hand goes from here, it comes back to the bone of the cheek and it goes back out. That's going to improve that rear hand a lot. Number eight happens when people start applying their rear hand, sparring situations, on pads, on the heavy bag, in a fight. When people are relatively new to it, what they want to do is, they're well-intentioned. They remember that they want to hit and they want to not get hit, but they do it in the wrong way. So what they do is they stay out of range, they reach forward so that they can be safe again. Now, the problem with that is the punch is not really going to be a punch. There's not going to be much power on that, okay? What you need to do is bring your base with you. When you're throwing your rear hand, it's all about your base, especially if your opponent is backing up. If my opponent's backing up, I don't want to be swinging like this. What I do want to do is imagine that I'm almost kicking the toenail off someone. So I bring my base with me, I step forward, and then I can step back out of range. So if I need to cross distance, if I need to maximize my range, I want to bring my base under me. Just like we said at the start, that pole is going from the ceiling to the floor. That doesn't change. I don't want to rip the front of my head with that pole. It's stuck to me. I want to bring that pole with me. So when you want to maximize your range, bring your base with you rather than leaning forward. Number 9, I think we've all been guilty of this, especially when we started, is you're so focused on throwing with power, you hold your breath, okay? If you've ever been punched in the body as a counter, when you're doing that, you realize how big a mistake that is, okay? So that sound, it sounds silly, but it has a reason, okay? What we want to be doing when we throw the shot is just releasing a little bit of air. So if we do get hit, comes out rather than being winded and leaving ourselves open. And the rear hand is a big culprit for that. People, because they're so focused on the power, they hold their breath and they leave themselves very susceptible. Remember your breathing when you're throwing the punches. Number 10 is not maintaining eye contact when you throw the shot. Because it is a twisting shot, what people often do is follow with their head as well. So when they're throwing the right hand, they're looking. I don't know what my opponent is doing here. They may be throwing a counter shot. The shot that you don't see is one that's going to put you down. So remember, just like when we were doing this drill, my body turns around my head. I don't bring my head along for the ride, okay? This is going to be what you're focusing on rather than this. Keep your eyes on the prize and get that knockout. All right, guys, so I hope you found this helpful. They're the 10 most common mistakes, no particular order, of the rear hand. I hope you're not doing any of them. If you are, at least you know them now. You know to work on them, you know how to avoid them, and you know the reasons why you don't want to do them, which is the most important thing. So stay tuned, guys, as always. Comment below if there's anything you think I've forgotten, anything you want me to add, anything you want covered in future videos. But happy training, guys. Enjoy it and keep up with the sweet science.